This is a relay project.
Real Talk starts right now. Here's Ryan Jesperson.
On this November 16th, we wish you a happy Wednesday. I don't know if it's a happy Wednesday. It's Wednesday anyway. It's hump day. And we thank you for joining us. I've got notes, John, John Hicks, technical producer of this show, the straw that stirs the drink.
Oh, yeah.
We posted from our official Twitter account this morning, as we do every morning before the show, at Real Talk RJ. Thanks for following us. Thanks for sharing our content. Trump's running in 2024. Trains may run between Calgary and Banff, and Calgary City Council wants Sean Chu to run away. Those are three of the lead stories that we'll talk about and cover today, including the preliminary results of an unofficial, unscientific Twitter poll that I have currently running under my profile on Twitter at Ryan Jesperson. Twitter's still there, John, today, which is good news, I think.
Another day above ground.
Another day above ground for people that are using Twitter. We've got about 1,600 votes asking you, and you know, these are unscientific and unofficial, and so you may say, well, the data, the sample here could be compromised. How do we know about the credibility of people chiming? We don't, okay? And that's why we present these anecdotally. But on the heels of Premier Danielle Smith's mandate letters going out to her ministers and her communication with the public saying that she's going to look, she wants to talk to Calgary City Council, she wants to prioritize action on a train between Calgary and Banff. Of course, we couldn't help but ignore the idea that's been around for, what, John, 50 years or longer, a high-speed train between Calgary and Edmonton, running through Red Deer. Monorail. Connecting, probably, it would make sense, Fort McMurray, Grand Prairie, if possible. Why not down to Lethbridge? So we're asking you, Albertans, and I'm sure there are probably some folks, some rabble-rousers not from Alberta that are chiming in on this poll, would you rather see a rail line between Calgary and Banff, Calgary and Edmonton, neither or both? It caps our options at 4 with these Twitter polls. We could have had more in there. I mean, a lot of people are saying, what about Edmonton and Jasper high-speed rail? What about something else? The early results, and sometimes I have mixed feelings about presenting this while the voting is still open. We don't want to sway your voting, but about 1,600 people have checked in on this with a number of hours left to go. 63% would most like to see high-speed rail between Alberta's two most populated cities, Calgary and Edmonton. The next vote, just under 20%, is for both, which would be, I don't know how many billions. And then there's almost a dead heat. 9% say neither, and 8% say Calgary and Banff. So fewer than 1 in 10 responding to our poll say that they would most like to see a rail line between Calgary and Banff. You can let us know what you think on that. Explosive revelations out of Calgary's City Council yesterday as Mayor Jyoti Gondek divulges that her council colleague, Sean Chu, who basically it seems everybody wants out of there, following, more and more people are better understanding what happened back in 1997 when he was a Calgary police officer with him and a woman who was a girl, 16 years old at the time, known only as HH. We've been talking about this show at length. Well, this story has continued. Harassment and abuse has continued to be leveled at that woman, at her family. She's been intimidated. She's been tweeting about it. We talked to Dr. Dwayne Brad about that just a few episodes ago, and you can go back and check that out. Well, yesterday, Calgary's Mayor Jyoti Gondek divulging that Councillor Sean Chu took photos of her vehicle, including her license plate, and made those available to the public so that the protesters that had been gathering outside her home, so that the protesters that had been harassing her online could also ostensibly follow her. And of course, you never know what might happen in a circumstance like that. An egregious abuse of access, said Calgary's mayor from the office of the mayor, her official account just yesterday. And this is striking. This is a very big deal for a statement like this to come from a mayor. Quote, I was loath to allow Councillor Chu to chair the December 6th council meeting. Keep in mind, this guy's been deputy mayor, right? And this is a big part of the hearing yesterday. They went in camera for a while, which meant that they were off the record, so to speak. Members of the public were not privy to everything, but kudos to the journalists that were there covering what they could. says the mayor loathed to allow him to chair the December 6th council meeting based on the admitted discreditable conduct and other allegations. He has further compromised my personal safety over this past year, says Calgary's mayor. He took photos of my vehicle license plate in a secured area, photos that later surfaced from a member of the public. In other words, he took them and shared them. Says Jyoti Gondek, I'm not comfortable liaising with Councillor Chu's office, nor with entrusting him with the responsibilities of deputy mayor, which he has since, by the way, relinquished. Says Calgary's mayor, I am well aware my own experience pales in comparison to what happened to a 16-year-old girl in 1997. It should, however, demonstrate that working with this individual has jeopardized my safety and created fear of reprisal for speaking out. Says the political scientist, or rather, let's get to this from Richard Einerson. Richard is the president of Northweather. He's a prominent strategist and political commentator out of Calgary. He says appalling and disturbing new information emerging about Councillor Sean Chu at the Calgary City Council meeting. Considering the bigger picture, it's clear that Chu needs to resign today, like right now, says Richard Einerson. What about this from Professor Bratt? Says, let's think for a moment about the latest horrific behavior by Sean Chu. Jyoti Gondek had demonstrators protesting at her house, so Chu thought he should take a picture of her license plate and circulate it on social media so protesters could follow her around the city. Says Bratt, I can't believe Gondek kept quiet about this until now. And one of the mayor's colleagues on council, Evan Spencer, says, while I have no direct connection with HH, I certainly do with Jyoti, he says, with the mayor. This is what compels me to write this evening, a Twitter thread from @SpencerFor12 if you want to check it out. Calgary, he says, our mayor possesses otherworldly courage and is often the primary lightning rod for hate that I didn't want to believe existed in our city. To know that my colleague was complicit in eroding her safety infuriates me. It connects the dots. Resign, Sean Chu. Sean Chu's probably not going to resign. That's what a lot of you have been saying in correspondence with this show. Some of you are suggesting that we should move on from the story. One of you wrote in to tell us that you believe that this is an attempted distraction to sway people away from focusing on this council and the mayor's unpopularity, if you can believe it, as though this isn't a story. It is. And we're going to stick on that. You can fuel our editorial content on this by sending us an email and letting us know what you think to talk@ryanjesperson.com. And then, John, there's this story out of the United States. For those of you that haven't heard, you probably all have. POTUS, previous, says he wants to be POTUS again. Donald Trump saying that he is not done with the Oval Office. He has confirmed last night, per an announcement at Mar-a-Lago in front of a packed room, that he will seek the presidency again in 2024.
Oh, gosh.
You, as a dual citizen,
I might go down just to not vote for him.
You
just
might go
to
down
vote for the other guy, whoever it is.
There you go. Would you
Or
vote
gal.
would you be voting in Florida? Where would it be? How would that work?
It would be, Dade County.
Dade County.
Dade County.
Would that might be a real battleground down there. That everybody says Florida now is just straight up Republican red. So.
I see the gears turning in your head. We're sending Johnny down to beautiful Dade County, Florida.
Yeah, our election correspondent in 2024. Donald Trump says in order to, and then he's sticking with the slogan, make America great again, Donald Trump will seek the presidency again in 2024. He says yesterday, per his announcement, surrounded by people who love him and people he loves. So there's that. Now, we take that on in this week's episode of Seriously. You can check it out at seriouslypod.com. We've just pushed that out this morning. It's our weekly project, Supriya Dwivedi and myself. We guarantee a half hour or less every Wednesday. We'll cut through the noise of the national and international news and politics stories that matter most, including Trump's announcement and, of course, the strain on pediatric ICUs and ERs, children's hospitals across the country. That's in this week's episode of Seriously. You can download it and subscribe on YouTube, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, or via seriouslypod.com.
30 minutes or it's free.
30 minutes or it's free.
Oh, wait, it's always free.
It's always free. But we want to piggyback on the highly successful pizza delivery advertisements through the 1980s and early 1990s. Remember back when the only thing you could get delivered was like pizza and Chinese food?
Yeah, 30 minutes or it's free. Now it's like
you got 14 choices of ramen.
Skip the dishes has a timer and you don't get a choice.
That's right. That's exactly right. Coming up in just a moment, we're going to talk to the mayor of Nanton, Alberta, a beautiful community. Nanton's where I learned to golf, in fact, just south of Calgary. Jennifer Handley says, no way, no how. She does not want to see a provincial police force. In fact, she feels so strongly about it that she has her position staked in her Twitter bio. She had a conversation around a table just a few days ago with someone. She says, you got to be careful when you bring stuff like this up, politics, religion, sex around the table. But she did. She went there. And so we figured she might be willing to go there with us, too. She will in just a second. The interview is presented by our friends at McBain Camera, who want to remind you that this is a perfect time of year to start thinking about what you're going to gift to that person that has everything, the person that loves to create but maybe might benefit from an upgrade in their equipment. You can get Black Friday deals today at McBain, including saving $200 on the Fujifilm X-T4 camera body. This thing is beautiful, whether it's photography or videography. Fujifilm's X-T4 has been designed to be the ultimate hybrid image-making tool. It features a powerful 26.1 megapixel sensor and state-of-the-art 5-axis in-body image stabilization. That's a big deal. It means your photos aren't going to be blurry, even if you're zoomed in. It's only $29.99, just under $2,100 right now on special with 24-hour delivery available within Edmonton, in-store pickup available at all 6 locations. You can visit McBainCamera.com today to see a full list of Fujifilm Black Friday deals. At Friesen Brothers, they've got a whole lot going on right now, but of course all anybody's talking about in those 16 Alberta locations is Charlie's birthday. Yeah, that's right, Charlie. Their sourdough starter turns 7 years old tomorrow, November 17th. Thanks to Charlie, their sourdough starter, their craft bakers create a huge variety of bakery products from bread and buns to all kinds of sweet treats, like those cinnamon buns I can't stop talking about. You can learn more about Charlie at friesen.com/Charlie, and don't forget to enter their birthday celebration bread gift basket giveaway. You got to register before November 17th. Before tomorrow, they'll pick a winner early next week. There's one winner for each of the 16 Friesen Brothers stores in the province of Alberta. And a big shout out to our friends at Kubi Renewable Energy, who want to remind you that they work through the winter months to ensure that the permitting, the planning, the funding, that Canada Greener Homes grant, and of course the plans are all drawn up for early spring solar installations across Western Canada. They've got offices in Kamloops, in Edmonton, means they can deploy their Tesla certified installers anytime, and you only have journeymen and apprentices up on your roof, so you know that job is done right. Get the ball rolling today with a free quote online at kubienergy.ca. All right. This is a story that has been lingering. It's a story that's been, it's been making the rounds in political circles across the country, right? Because people take a look at a province's plan to introduce a provincial police force, and they apply it to examples that already exist. For example, in Ontario with the OPP. Now, you probably know that outside the major urban centers in Alberta, the majority of rural or medium-sized communities are policed by the RCMP. First, Jason Kenney said he thought it would be a good idea to move to a provincial police force. His successor, Danielle Smith, says the same thing. Well, not all community leaders agree, including our leadoff guest this morning. She's the mayor of Nanton. Was born and raised, though, in Calgary, Alberta, about a half hour north of there. She's worked full-time as a real estate agent for 20 years, so she understands that market, and she was first elected to Nanton Town Council coming up on 10 years ago. Currently serving her second term as mayor, she lives with her hubby, her 2 teens, her father-in-law, and she's passionate about politics and charcuterie. That's something we can all get on board with as Jennifer Handley, her worship, joins us on Real Talk this morning. Thanks for making time for us, and a good Wednesday to you.
Yeah, good morning, Ryan. Thanks for having me today.
What's your sort of curveball charcuterie board inclusion? What do you? Everybody knows about like the mustards and the jams and the jellies and the certain types of prosciutto and the olives, but what do you throw on there to throw people for a loop?
I love having pretzels and peanut butter spread.
Oh, I love it. Pretzels and peanut butter spread. I'm with you. I'm stealing that one. I'll give you all the credit, though, I promise. Hey, let's talk about this. First of all, let me ask you, as a born and raised Calgarian, you and I have that in common. What do you think about, and this is not why you're here, and I don't think I'm blindsiding you. I'm sure you have an informed opinion on it. What do you think about the Premier's idea? She floated it yesterday about a high-speed rail line between Calgary and Banff. You think it's a good idea?
High-speed line to Calgary and Lethbridge was nice too.
yeah. You'd like to see one to Lethbridge?
If we're just throwing it out there, we may as well go to Lethbridge. But absolutely, I think Calgary to Edmonton just makes sense. I worked in Fort McMurray for years and years, so that would be ideal as well. But the Calgary to Edmonton, everybody does that drive.
Okay, so you'd put your vote in our unofficial, unscientific Twitter poll for Calgary to Edmonton over Calgary to Banff?
Yeah,
okay.
Absolutely.
All right. Tell us about this conversation you found yourself in. You tweeted about it the other day. I want to make sure people are following you at Jen Handley. It's in our Real Talk RJ tweet from this morning. You wound up talking about a provincial police force with someone. I'm sure you've had this conversation a million times already, though.
Yeah, so I was away for the weekend in Fairmont with a bunch of friends from Nanton, and we started talking about the provincial police force, which usually this group of people, they're very politically neutral. We really don't have these types of conversations. And they were extremely passionate in support of the provincial police force. And so given how passionate our council and I have been over the years about the importance of maintaining the RCMP and not having an Alberta police force, I really had to set my bias aside and kind of hear them out. Because for these people who, again, don't really engage in politics very often, they don't follow it, I was like, okay, so what are your thoughts? What do you think the benefits are to a provincial police force? And for them, they said, living in rural Alberta, that they assumed that we would have broader coverage, that every municipality, no matter the size, so the Stateleys, which only had about 1,000 people, they would have their own detachment. They just felt that there would be 24-hour coverage in every single small community in Alberta. And I really had to take a deep breath at that time, because I had to think, okay, so the lack of communication by both the Jason Kenney government, I know Danielle's very new to this as well, everybody's there to assume the worst and the best of what this Alberta police force could bring to our province. And really, nobody has any idea, because it has not been communicated why they're bringing this into the province, except for maybe because Justin Trudeau is controlling the RCMP. That's all I'm hearing. And there's no rhyme or reason how there could be value to Albertans for this proposed police force.
Yeah, I mean, I do think it fits into the whole idea of Alberta sovereignty. Like, there's talk, there's a directive. I mean, the mandate letters have gone out from the Premier's office, including looking into an Alberta-specific pension plan, which I know a lot of people are nervous about, and understandably so. When you're talking about people's retirement funds, you don't have to think too hard, regarding why people might feel strongly about that. You invoke EMS. I mean, let me reference your thread here. You say you're talking, this is what caught my attention. You say, I'm talking to provincial police force at a party tonight, as one should never do, you tweet. You commit to setting your bias aside and hearing the conversation out. But you go on to talk about what you just talked to us about, that there is a belief from the supporters of the idea that each community would have 24-hour coverage with this Alberta police force. But you ask them, ideologically, or at least through this conversation, to pivot. You ask, how is rural ambulance service working for us currently? We've been grateful in the 2-year history of this show to hear from mayors, like former Mayor Spearman in Lethbridge, I can think of as an example, or Mayor Veer, former Mayor Veer in Red Deer. We talked to the mayor up in Grand Prairie. We've talked to, from a ton of different communities. And we've gotten different stories about how EMS is working out for them, but we understand that there's been a strain. There's a lot of politics involved there as well, and there's a lot of different perspectives on centralizing or decentralizing. What about in Nanton? What can you tell us about Nanton, about half hour 45 south of Calgary?
So our EMS system, we are transporting. It's very rare that they're actually in Alberta in Nanton. So we do have a base in Nanton, but they're actually never in Nanton. They're either down in Lethbridge, Falcon, sometimes there's bars North Calgary. And the level of service here, there's many times where you go on and you see that there's no ambulance in our region, which is incredibly scary for Nanton, being that our closest hospital is 20 minutes away. So to have zero coverage is definitely another big issue that we are trying to face here in town.
So you say, I mean, you write in your thread, you invoke the word furious, which when a mayor tweets the word furious, it catches people's attention, right? You say that you'd like to see this put to a referendum with actual facts, with actual costs. You say, I continue to be furious that this is being imposed on us. You think this is actually going to happen? I mean, it's actually a huge step to cancel the contract, to invest. People can hear your sigh, but to invest. I mean, it's going to be hundreds of millions of dollars. You think of the infrastructure, you think of the training. It might be more than that. I will say we've had people on the show as well, including one individual who spent nearly 30 years critiquing and fine-tuning the RCMP in a civilian role, and he said he thinks it's actually a good idea. You think it's actually going to happen?
Sometimes I do. They continue to push this. They continue to make it their agenda. And, even in August, when Minister Chandro said, you know what, no, we're not going to do this. We are going to focus more on elevating the level of service. And then 2 months later, now we've got a new leader, and she's all in on this, and the mandate's spoken. So the yo-yo just keeps bouncing up and down. And as I said at the dinner party the other night, right now, if this UCP government continues to go down this path, it will always be the UCP police force. It will not be the Albertan police force. And that's why I'm pushing for a referendum. Just put it to bed. Let us speak. Alberta municipalities, RMA, we have spoken loudly that as a collective body that we do not want this. And you would think that that would be enough for this government, but here we are. They continue to go without any rhyme or reason. And so I do think it does need to go to a referendum with facts.
Yeah, I mean, I guess it could be a referendum, it could be a question on the ballot in May of 2023, or it could be ostensibly the ballot question, right? I mean, like that's kind of sometimes how elections work, right? I'm sure that you saw this as well from former NDP minister. She's the MLA for Calgary Mountain View, the NDP energy critic Kathleen Ganley, tweeting just yesterday, things Albertans don't want: their own police force, their own pension and sovereignty. The UCP government's top priority, their own police force, their own pension plan and sovereignty. It's very clear the position that the NDP will take on this. I mean, this essentially just becomes an election question, referendum or not, right?
Yeah, absolutely. And I think, as I stated before in many of my tweets, Nanton took the responsibility to build up our RCMP detachment here. We were not getting the level of service that we needed and that our surrounding rural communities needed. So we took it on our own, and we went to the K divisions. We went to the highest levels of Alberta RCMP, and we fought to have a full detachment. Our RCMP comes to our council meetings every 2 months and gives us reports. They get the temperature of our community needs, and they move forward. People see our RCMP in our community, and they are well respected in our town. But that didn't come easy. We fought for that, and we've worked hard to have that relationship. So I feel like the provincial government, they're recreating the wheel. Why are we doing this? Should there be more energy in making sure that the current RCMP force has the staffing levels that they need, the funding levels that they need? I just don't understand this directive at all.
Mayor, can you just, before we thank you for your time, can you explain to us maybe some of the implications there with regards to your community stepping up, in your words, to better coverage or to better policing from the RCMP, how that impacted? I mean, we understand, the average civilian, myself included, understands a little bit about the costs that have been downloaded onto municipalities over the past year or so, maybe a little bit longer than that, been very unpopular. There's over the past 4 years, you're signaling. It's been a strained relationship. We talked about this on our Alberta Municipalities Roundtable just the other day. with Tanya Thorne and Dylan Bracey and Kathy Heron, mayors and councillors in Grand Prairie and Okotoks and of course St. Albert. We've spoken to other mayors about the stresses that has caused, and a lot of them have lamented the loss of service or the lengthy response times. I mean, some people report to us they call the RCMP about a B&E in a rural area, and they're there in 2.5 hours. And it's not a slight against the cops. I mean, it's a slight against the system. Did your mill rate go up? Did property taxes go up in Nanton? Did you have to sacrifice on other fronts? How did you make it happen?
Yeah, so every year it added 2% to our operating budget. So over the last 4 years, we've added about 8% to our budget to make space for this police tax. And our council was very clear that we were not going to cut any services or make room in our budget for the provincial police tax. And so we were very clear in our mill rate that this is a police tax. And we also thought and expressed through communications that it should have been in the form of a requisition. We felt that it was a hidden tax, and they were just sending us the invoice when it really should have been very clear on our property tax bills that this was provincially downloaded tax.
I don't prefer when people impose a political leaning or a partisan angle on an entire community. I don't think it's productive, and sometimes voters surprise us. But typically, people would think of Southern Alberta, including Nanton, a wonderful community, as a conservative stronghold. As the mayor, do you stick your neck out a little bit, having conversations like this, criticizing this premier, or initiatives like this? Do you see blowback immediately?
I think absolutely. I think, we do have a lot of people that have moved here from Calgary, so that our perspectives are a little bit broader than they were probably 10 years ago. But I think anytime you put any message out, you're going to be criticized by somebody one way or the other. So I'd much rather have the direction of council and just go all in and say this is our position as council, which, really it leans both left and right. So I think it's got the full weight of the perspective of it.
Yeah, an entity that leans left and right at the same time might wind up being pretty balanced, eh, Mayor? Jennifer Handley, right here on Real Talk. You can give her a follow on Twitter and let us know what you think of this conversation. Thanks for making time for us. It's nice to see your face.
Yeah, thanks for having me. Have a great day.
Yeah, you got it. Shout out to Nanton, Alberta. We're going to head from Nanton to Sharm el-Sheikh, Egypt in just a second. Chef Shane Chartrand is standing by there. So excited to check in. Chef and I have been friends for, I think, 15 years or so now, and I've just been wowed by his brilliance and his commitment to furthering the reach of Indigenous cuisine around the world. He's the co-author and the magic behind Tawaw, this progressive Indigenous cuisine book, alongside co-authored with the brilliant Jennifer Cockrell-King, and Chef's going to join us from Egypt before a big event in just a second. Wanted to let you know, and if you're tuning in to Real Talk for the first time from Southern Alberta, and you're opening your utilities bills right now and you're going, how the hell am I going to pay for this through the summer, right? Temperatures dropping, days are getting dark earlier, you're using more electricity, you're using more natural gas. Do yourself a favor, take 2 minutes today and check out parkpower.ca. You can compare rates, what you're paying right now versus what you would pay with them. The same service is guaranteed regardless of provider in Alberta. There's no benefit to going with the big corporate guys. This is a friendly local utilities provider that gives back. 10% of their profits go to non-profits in Alberta communities. When you sign up, use the promo code 2022-RealTalk and they'll knock $70 off your first bill. $70! I mean, John, depending on what you drive, that could be a full tank of gas. Depending on what you drive, that could be an eighth of a tank of gas, but it's still $70, right? At parkpower.ca. At Eden Landscaping, they bring outdoor spaces to life and have been doing so for more than 20 years as a family-owned business and a full-service contractor. That means from pulling the permits, from the architecture and the design to the implementation, they do not leave until you are 100% satisfied. Sometimes securing, especially with supply chain challenges, the perfect materials for your construction project means a couple of extra months, which is why it's always a great idea to get in touch with them through the winter so they can break ground in spring. You can contact Mike and his team at Eden Landscaping by visiting landscapeedmonton.ca. Don't forget, also, always on our sponsors tab, you can find our Real Talk partners there, including the Dairy Queens of Northwest Edmonton and Sherwood Park. Holiday DQ cakes are a thing, and you can order yours from the Dairy Queens in Palisades, Nemeo, Newcastle, Westmount, and Baseline Road. Whether it's Christmas, Kwanzaa, Festivus, Hanukkah, or maybe no celebrating at all. Hey, how about those people that have birthdays on December 25th? You want the perfect cake? Make it a DQ cake from a Dairy Queen in Palisades, Nemeo, Newcastle, Westmount, or Baseline Road. And before we head over to Egypt, let's head over to apexautomation.ca. That's what professional engineers across the country and, quite frankly, around the world. I just met two from China at their head office just the other day. They lived in Canada for 2 months now. They're working on coding. Brilliant stuff as part of automation for potash mining, for natural gas processing, for brewing. I mean, automation, of course, spans many different industries, and Apex Automation is leading that charge in Canada. Their corporate culture, second to none, which is why many folks with a PEng are looking to move their career over to Apex Automation, giving people back their time. Well, this is a really neat opportunity for us to be able to head back over to COP27. We've been bringing you some pretty cool interviews, if I may say, from there, including just the other day, Dr. Catherine Hayhoe, climate scientist, Zipporah Berman, environmental activist, and now my good friend, Shane Chartrand. He is a skilled and talented chef. He is an author, and right now he is essentially a Canadian delegate over there in Egypt. If you follow him on Twitter or Instagram, you'll see in his bio he cooks through the emotions of Indigenous nations with the blood of the Plains Cree and the roots of the Métis. Miigwech. Chef Shane Chartrand joining us from Egypt. It's so good to see you. What time is it? It's about 6 in the evening over there right now?
Yeah, that's about what time it is here.
And how did you wind up in Egypt?
I wound up here because I represent for the UN. I represent the Indigenous food push towards what Indigenous food does for Canada. And when I say that, it's because we as Canadians need to understand, and a lot of the world, even just being here at COP, we need to understand that we need to utilize everything. And the one thing that we sit there and we just don't understand is why Indigenous people, and the reason I've been working on this message for so many years, is because we tend to always use the fancy cuts of meat. We tend to use the tenderloin, the triple A's, the primes. The whole idea of this entire movement in this world is about using every part of the animals, which the Indigenous people believe in. That's your mentality, your spirituality, who you are, and why you celebrate every parts of the animal, because that's what Indigenous people do, and that's what the world should do. Don't worry about using everything. There's things like the tongue. The beef tongue is delicious. There's cuts of meat like the hanger steak, the iron steak, and that's only one animal, never mind everything else. So that's what I represent, and that's why I'm here.
Have you found I know that you have a project coming up. You have a sort of a big, almost like an exhibition that you're putting on about 36 hours from now, I think, if my math is correct. Can you tell us what your time there has been like, what you've been presenting, who you've been presenting it to, and how it's been received?
Well, it's been received very, very well. I am extremely shocked the amount of people here around the world. Very well. As I listen to theirs too, it goes both ways. I got to listen to their words and where they're from. Lots of Indigenous people from everywhere. I mean, I've got people from all over Africa here that had lots to say. I mean, people are here for a lot of reasons. Now, this is about climate change, but climate change affects food by the farmers, by the growers. It goes all the way down the line. So everybody has one little tool that makes food change, climate change equally as important. So it's been incredible, the amount of people I've listened to. Uh, um, People live in the middle of nowhere, talking about climate change and food change and sustainability and why. And let's just put it this way. I learned this today. Ryan, you're one of the most exciting moments you remember in your life. Where would have been? I bet you outdoors somewhere, in the wilderness somewhere. 95% chance that's what it is. And that's another big drive that people have, is we don't experience the outdoors. We don't spend enough time out there. We're in our big homes and our elaborated places. And that's an interesting point of view. I never thought of it in this perspective, but it's very interesting. That's a strong word that's going around here.
Chef, I want to let you know real quick, we're getting kind of interruptions between your Wi-Fi, and so if we've got to cut this interview short, I want to let you know that we're going to get you back on the show as soon as you're home, because you're also doing something at the Banff Center right now. We're talking about the Rockies right now, and we're about to go there with MyJasper Memories as well, because I want to talk to you bigger picture about your mission and your mandate and what's driven your creative process. But I mentioned that you and I first got to know each other right when I first moved to Edmonton. I think it was about 15 years ago. I've seen you open restaurants. I've seen you champion Indigenous cuisine. How have you seen, I mean, you've published your book, Tawaw, which is obviously has had rave reviews around the world, quite frankly. How have you seen attitudes change, or openness change, or interest change from the general public, from consumers, from people who eat and want to learn more about what they're eating and why?
Well, the one thing I'll tell you, and I hope I don't break up here on you, but the difference between something like local food versus Indigenous food are two totally different worlds. And the world is spirituality, and that harnesses your soul to what you're eating. So basically, my big push is emotion driven is what Indigenous people believe. They just say it a little bit different than I say it. Some do, some don't. But at the end of the day, we've got to be mindful and peaceful and understand where things come from. It's like a medicine stick. If Ryan Jesperson has his medicine stick in front of him, he grabs it. We listen to what he has to say. But we don't have any words. That's medicine stick. Now, when you talk about those kind of environments, when it comes to food inside of that bundle, you'd be surprised with that one small example, how much your life can change based on what one person has to say when they get time to actually talk about what they want to get through. Indigenous speaking, spirituality, and good healthy eating. And it has been working in Tawaw very strongly. A lot of doctors and lawyers and instructors of NAIT, my hometown, Edmonton, came all the way to Banff to see me, and they want to consider Indigenous food being pushed into culinary schools. The culinary side of Indigenous, which is right up my alley.
I'm just flipping through your social media right now. People should just do themselves a favor and follow you on Twitter and on Instagram. They can easily find Shane Chartrand there, Chef Shane Chartrand we're talking to. Tell us about what I'm showing on the screen right now. You talked, that looks like a marrow, right? And I think that's beef cheek and salmon. Is that right? Chef, are you still with us? And we may have lost him, Johnny. It looks like we lost him. Yeah, I think. Shane? I'll tell you what we'll do.
You know what? That was an interpretation of land. So that's.
Yeah. Tell Shane we'll bring him back. Tell him we'll bring him back as soon as he gets back from Egypt. And in the meantime, hey, this stuff happens sometimes, right? The guy's checking in from Egypt, and you never know what the connection's like over there where he's working, streaming live and doing all the things. We're going to get Chef Shane Chartrand back on the show because this guy will blow your. Can you tell? Like, he just oozes passion, and he's brilliant. And you should check out his book. If we want to put that up one more time, I want to let you know you can find Tawaw, Progressive Indigenous Cuisine, Chef Shane Chartrand in partnership with Jennifer Cockrell King. Tawaw is the book, Tawaw, and you can find it anywhere you buy great books. Our thanks to Chef Shane Chartrand for joining us. I'll shoot him a quick note as soon as we're wrapped up the show here, and we'll rebook him when he's back on Canadian soil with a more reliable connection. We appreciate him checking in. That's right around the supper hour there, so this guy's got his hands full.
Yeah, he's got
doing a lot.
He's got his chef gear on. He's ready to go.
He's ready to go. He had a window. He goes, I can talk to you. It was like 5:45 p.m. to like 6:15, which is right right about now anyway, p.m. in Egypt when we're speaking. We don't know Real Talkers when you'll be listening to this, but of course we do stream live every morning. You know you can catch us at 8:30 Mountain, 10:30 Eastern, live streaming on YouTube and on the Mixlr audio app, or of course, like most of you do, later on demand, wherever you get your podcasts and on YouTube as well. Shall we head out to the mountains?
Ooh.
I'm kind of in the mood to head out to the mountains. Every Wednesday, this is our tradition, MyJasper Memories, which is presented by our very good friends at Tourism Jasper. And right now, we thought it was a perfect time. Like, we're midway through November already. Seems to be flying by. What's your plan with regards to your holidays? What about holiday parties? What's your plan with regards to how you're going to spend the holiday season with the people whose company you cherish? You might say the folks you love the most. Well, Jasper National Park, of course, offers some absolute gems, and you can check them all out at jasper.travel/realtalk. Jasper.travel/realtalk. They've got a wonderful post here on holiday party plans with a ton of different options to celebrate the holidays in Jasper, including Terra. Oh, man. This is, of course, located inside the Crimson Hotel, a newly renovated spot. It is stunningly beautiful, a warm and welcoming ambiance, and a creative cocktail list perfect for holiday gatherings. Now, of course, there's the Forest Park Hotel as well. If you have a large crew, maybe a corporate party that's coming to celebrate, the Sawridge Ballroom at the Forest Park Hotel can accommodate just under 250 people. And the on-site restaurants bring a farm-to-table experience and a very cozy aesthetic. We love it there as a family. There's the Moline Canyon Wilderness Kitchen. Have you ever been out there, John?
I haven't been to the Wilderness Kitchen, but I've been out to Jasper.
Yeah, the Wilderness Kitchen is such a special spot. You can, of course, enjoy a nice meal there. Maybe it's like a lunch, or if you want to get into dinner ahead of or after like a Moline Canyon ice walk, which is one of the most surreal experiences that you can have on planet Earth.
Yeah.
Their canyon side location sets this restaurant apart from any other option in the park. And its delicious menu of smokehouse favorites up the ante even further. It offers seclusion and convenience for your event. And then, of course, there's the Pyramid Lake Resort. We were out there last February. We love this spot. Ice skating, playing a little pond hockey with the little ones.
Love the ice skating. Oh.
A horse-drawn sleigh ride around Pyramid Lake. I mean, just even the road in. It's a famous road. You see joggers out there, people on their mountain bikes, and of course vehicles coming through as well. The twists and turns, the mountainscape, it's incomparable. Chalet-style dining rooms at that lakeside resort. And, of course, who doesn't know about the Fairmont Jasper Park Lodge, right? Ooh. Iconic, luxurious, and always decorated beautifully for the holidays. They've got Christmas in November in full swing right now. The Fairmont JPL, as they call it, never misses with their holiday party options. You can find all the details and click through on the links to get either your questions answered or simply to book by visiting jasper.travel/Real Talk. When you head out there for your winter adventure in Jasper, we would love to see it. And featured on a future edition of MyJasper Memories, make sure you hashtag MyJasper and Real Talk RJ on Instagram, on Twitter, and then tune in every Wednesday here on Real Talk to check out MyJasper Memories, presented by our friends at Tourism Jasper.
The Fairmont Jasper. Wow, that is at Christmas.
The best.
It's got to be like top 3 for my wife in the world. She loves that whole chalet, ski resort, Christmas music playing,
nothing
snow
like it.
falling in the background,
hot cider.
I think of like that and like Rockefeller Center, New York. You know, like those iconic places you want to be at Christmas. It's always like a chalet. I always love being in the mountains.
I don't want to admit this. I've never been there.
You've never been to Rock Center,
dude? I've never been to New York.
I'm going to tell you something. I haven't been either. But I just brought it up because, like,
you're right.
Like, it's the first thing you think of, right?
When Christmas movies is all there, right? Like whether it's the, all the classics from the 50s all the way up, right? Doesn't Macaulay Culkin run through there and slide on his knees, running away from the cops?
I can
in
think
Home
of
Alone,
like 30 Christmas movies.
Yeah, that all
Rockefeller Center.
Yeah, you're
skating.
right. Yeah. Isn't that the truth? We wanted to share this video. This out of Qatar, the World Cup has launched, and this is. It's hilarious, but not funny at the same time. I know a lot of people talk about FIFA. We're talking football, soccer, right? And the do I say the corrupt nature of its organization? Like, is that a leap to call it that? Is it a leap to suggest that there's corruption
not a
and
leap.
back scratching and nepotism and all kinds of things that go on with some of the biggest sporting entities in the world, probably including the Olympic Games? Listen to me, the cynic. But people would wonder, and we've had real talkers that have chimed in. One just, I think it was yesterday or 2 days ago, that said that you're going to have a tough time watching it because of where it is, because of some of the things that have gone on in that part of the world, the human rights abuses and others. Well, this post, I mean, it's just kicking off, no pun intended, like in the next couple of days. There's a lot of games coming up on November 20th, and then this is the biggest sporting event in the world. It's always like they say it's always like the World Cup and the Olympics compete for the title of the biggest sporting event in the world. So you have media there from everywhere, including TV reporters from Denmark. And this happened. This is just hours ago in Qatar. It's for those watching on YouTube, you'll be able to see the body language, which is a big deal, and we'll describe it a little bit if you're listening on the podcast. But interference, censorship, if you will, as news reporters are trying to do their job, sports reporters are trying to tell the story of the World Cup. Check this out.
Et land, der jo altså bliver udsat for en helt del kritik. Hvordan oplever du forholdene lige nu?
Jamen, vi kan jo vise, hvordan forholdene er lige her, hvis vi drejer kameraet. We are live on Danish television, og der kan I se, nu bliver vi stoppet med at filme, og det er forholdene her. Mister, you invited the whole world you invited the whole world to come here. Why can't we film? It's a public place.
They got a hand over the camera.
We can film anywhere we want. There are only, of course.
Only for the Qatar. Qatar, you have because rule. The Qatar is
No. We don't need permit. But you can break the camera. You want to break the camera? Okay, you break the camera. Okay. Yes. So you're threatening us by smashing the camera.
Okay, so they got their hands over the lens. They're swinging. You can tell the camera's being swung around. The camera operator is observing the number one rule in ENG. They call it in electronic news gathering, which is always roll.
Yeah.
Never stop rolling.
Don't stop the tape.
Never turn the camera off. No matter what happens, never turn the camera off. This is how this is starting. This video already has millions of views, not just out of Denmark, all the way around the world. People are talking about this, already a stain on this. And this is just one station. This is just one journalist. This is just one incident. I'm sure that this is going to be a rocky road.
It's going to be bad.
It's going to be bad.
Like he said, you invited everyone down and then
just an
but don't film
mess.
any of it.
But don't film any of it. Only Qatar, only journalists here. So we're going to see what that looks like. People are going to start talking, I'm sure, about the venues or the countries that are awarded these types of tournaments and how that all plays out and what a mess oftentimes that turns out to be. You can, of course, always share your thoughts with us on that to talk at ryanjesperson.com. Plain Power is watching us live and says, why does the world view that area of the planet as important? Why are dictators viewed as important? Well, I'll give you one reason.
Money.
It was too subtle.
They have a lot of money.
I'm trying to pour gas on the fire here, but
unimaginable.
But oil give you a couple of reasons. Yeah. Wally says it's time to move on from the World Cup if they're going to continue to support these countries. Sure, except for nobody actually will. For footy fans around the world, this is as big as it gets. And people, I think, oftentimes, it's the same with the Olympics. When the Olympics goes to China, when the Olympics goes to Russia, and everybody says, I'm going to boycott the Olympic Games. And then you take a look at their Twitter when Canada wins, and they're like, Canada wins! And everybody's celebrating. Nobody actually boycotts, do they? Maybe the odd person. But I think that organizers and these enormous organizations worth billions of dollars just bank on the fact that people are going to support the events regardless of who's putting them on and, quite frankly, whose pockets are being padded. That just seems to be the way that it goes. Kathy says you should hire security for news teams and send the bill to FIFA. It was interesting. You hear Anderson Cooper was on Smartless a while ago and talked about some of the work that he's done around the world and in countries in particular where he felt that as a gay man that his safety was at risk, and the security detail that would follow him, that would accompany him when he was there on location with CNN for the most part.
So he doesn't do fun things.
Yeah.
Like what?
Jeez. Well, I just think that you have a target on your back
100%.
In certain parts of the world. Not to mention what female journalists around the world have been subjected to in many circumstances. That's a great reminder, by the way, of something we have coming up on tomorrow's show, and we'll tell you about that in just a quick second. Gilles says it's like trying to convince people to boycott hockey because of the Hockey Canada scandal.
Yeah, or the Live Tour. That's a good one going on right now. Like the money behind the Live Golf Tour is pretty questionable. If
it's undeniably
human
questionable.
Rights and,
but it's also undeniable.
But people say I'm not going to watch, and then they bring on not big stars, but
pretty big stars,
and you just want to watch just to see what happens.
Yeah,
like these semi-washed up guys with newer guys who need the money, and
then some of the real up and comers.
Exactly,
you've got major champions on that Live Tour, but I will say the product is way better. It's way better.
Well, that's what money does.
People aren't going to like this.
Makes everything shiny.
There's nothing that will compare to the green jacket, the Sunday at Augusta. Nothing can compare to the tradition of the Masters. But if you look at how most people golf these days, the culture of golf these days, maybe it started with Tiger Woods probably kick-starting interest in the sport with a lot of people, like I'm talking millions of people that otherwise may have had no exposure nor interest in the sport. A lot of people saw themselves, in particular visible minorities, saw themselves represented with Tiger Woods. You saw a lot of people from marginalized communities or even from countries maybe where golf wasn't that big getting interested. That's what a global superstar does. It's what Michael Jordan did for a lot of people in basketball. It's what Wayne Gretzky did, kickstarting interest in hockey in Southern California and in the United States. And you look at his legacy, 30 years after the fact.
Sure.
But the Live Tour, they have comedians that are paid to be there chirping golfers on tee boxes.
Yeah. And the course is incredible. And then you're talking about Tiger, maybe he'll go there.
No,
I saw an article that said they offered him $700
he would never go.
million.
He would never go.
Come on.
Oh, come on, dude. He's already Tiger Woods and Rory McIlroy are the two that are like planting their flag.
But they're legends.
But Tiger doesn't.
Tiger's
need
on
the
the
money.
downslope. I know.
He doesn't need the money. He would never do it. He would never do it. I would bet my house on it. I mean, I would be screwed if I lost.
$700 million is $700 million.
Okay, so this is why people listen an hour into the show. Would you do anything for $700 million?
No, but I'm just thinking of Tiger Woods and how, we may have. I think we're seeing the end of his career for sure. He's kind of walking into the sunset, and you never know what someone does in a few years when they're sitting around and they're bored and they want to play golf and maybe he gets into some trouble, some legal trouble. I don't know. Maybe he needs the money.
Yeah. Sharon is watching us right now. She says, my mind's been blown here. She must be a couple minutes behind us watching the Shane Chartrand interview. I can't wait to get Shane back on the show. I'm so sorry that the conversation was interrupted because he's just hit. I just love that guy.
It wasn't your fault.
But no, I know. I'm not saying I personally apologize. I'm just saying it's regrettable. Sharon says, my mind's been blown by the Indigenous world perspective. She says, our 2S LGBTQ youth in Egypt are some of the bravest people I have witnessed. That from Sharon. Wally, meantime, throwing a fastball high and inside, says, Jespo's like, yeah, sure, they behead people for being witches and apostates in the public square, but golf.
See?
I mean, is Wally typing their comment on their iPhone that was assembled by children in China? I mean, like, where do you draw the line? We've had this conversation on the show before.
We just had it with Adler when he was on here, and I am someone who gets pressed with this question all the time. Oh, you're plant-based, the car in your SUV or the steering wheel in your SUV is made of leather, and it's like it's unavoidable. It's literally unavoidable.
Now, that's not to say we can't be conscious consumers.
I try as best I can.
Yeah. I'm just telling you, like, if the Live Tour, I mean, real talk, if the Live Tour offered me $5 million a year to go take Real Talk and our broadcasting property over to there and to turn it into a Live Tour podcast for $5 million a year,
careful.
I'm gone. 100%. And the average person would be lying if they said they wouldn't. We talked about this on the show before. If you were offered life-changing wealth, like, are you asking, honestly, All the arguments about ethical oil and everything else. Everybody's talking about this, that, and the other. If you knew that the gas going into your car, if you knew if there was a flag, a sticker on a pump that told you that it was coming from Venezuela or Saudi Arabia, are you telling me that you'd park your car and you wouldn't drive it again? Bullshit.
I just want more options. I need more options. It's like Freezing Bros. I get so many options when I go there. I can buy this, I can buy that, I can look at the back. Is it made in Alberta? Is it made in Canada? Is it made in the States? And I just feel like the people that control the biggest corporations, companies, the people with the most control of the world, like, we don't have any options for oil. We don't have any options for like you're talking about, our phone. We want the best phone because we use it for work and social.
But we want it at the best price.
And we do. And who makes it?
If someone offered, I would love to see how this would go. I would love to see how it would go if somebody offered 2 iPhone options.
Be amazing.
If somebody offered you an option that was $799 assembled in China under ostensibly questionable circumstances,
or $3,000,
or $3,000 assembled in the good old USA,
made from 3 times recycled materials.
Yeah, made from celery stalks and corn husks.
But here's the
how
thing.
many people would pay $3,000 for the iPhone, and how many would pay $700?
I don't know, but myself. I don't think anyone buys a phone outright these days. They're on some sort of payment plan. They pay $30 a month, $10 a month.
Red herring.
I'd go for it because that's one thing we're talking about where, phones, cars, oil.
Yeah.
Where your food comes from. You're between a rock and a hard place if you want to survive.
Yeah. Yeah.
If you want something at the best price. Have you been to the supermarket lately, Ryan?
Dr. Bradley Martin is watching us right now. He's referencing the bumper stickers that we see an awful lot in this part of the country. He hasn't seen a lot of I Heart Venezuelan oil stickers. And you're right. You're right. Jillian is bang on in pointing out that the United States still had golf courses that banned black people when Tiger was winning. I mean, Augusta. Mm-hmm. Augusta's history is very questionable.
Golf's
history. I remember when golf
murky.
Sure. I remember when Augusta sort of, I don't know if I want to use this word, but like trotted out or sort of like presented Condoleezza Rice as a member. I guess trying to tick off 2 boxes at the same time. And people kind of rolled their eyes like, she's never going to golf there. This is a PR exercise. Mm-hmm. But Jillian's absolutely bang on and correct. And I see that she also chimes in with a subsequent comment. She says, also, real talk, white males don't get shamed for their decisions to the level others do. So making the so-called selfish choice has different consequences for different folks. If we had an image of a dart hitting a bullseye, we'd probably put it up on the screen right there.
Bang on.
Justin's not wrong in pointing out, he says, look at companies like Patagonia. People pay more for companies that they know support initiatives they care about.
Mm-hmm. But then, like, it can backfire. Look at Tesla. Like, Tesla, when they started making cars, I was like, yes, this is it.
Sure.
And now I'm like, fuck that guy.
Oh, my gosh.
I just think you could buy into something and it could bite you in the ass a year later.
I got to look on this. I got to search right now. What's Tesla stock doing as we speak? Let's take a look. It's just in a nose. Oh, it's down 3% today, but it's like down. Let's take a look at the last month. Look at that. You want to put that up on the screen? It was at, what was it at? Its peak, Johnny, it was about $230 a share, looks like. Approximately, it's down 14% over the last month. Dipped down November 9th, November 10th. It was down sub 180, which is a pretty significant drop. It's very interesting. There's not a lot of companies. Like you think of, I was interested to watch, like when Steve Jobs passed away, people looked at what Apple stock did. Apple's obviously still hammering away and owns an enormous part of the global market. It's the most valuable company in the world. But like personalities, individuals tied to companies and the company's perceived or real market value is fascinating. Mm-hmm. Like you don't hear that with BP. You don't hear that with, actually, bad example. Maybe you do hear it a little bit with Loblaws and Galen Weston, maybe a little bit. But with Elon Musk and Tesla, I bet you, and you've just touched on this, it's not my original idea at all. I wonder how many people, I wonder what percentage of a consumer market would say no, would rule out buying a Tesla because of their personal feelings about Elon Musk.
I would. I'm just waiting for another company, and I see the other car companies doing it now. They're making their full-on EVs now, and they're more affordable. And it just, I don't know. We're talking about iPhones. Kimberly still has an 8 on the chat.
iPhone 8?
She's still rocking the 8 Plus, which is, and you're talking about Steve Jobs as well. I was enamored with that guy, loved him. And then I feel like Apple's just gotten confusing now. And
Tim Cook's leadership, what's confusing about it?
Not confusing, but like you're just getting the same product recycled.
Yeah, like there's no
the phone doesn't change anymore. You just get a better camera. You get that. Whereas every time Steve Jobs made an announcement, it was like, oh my gosh, here comes innovation. Here comes the next level.
But maybe he was also just a great salesman.
He was.
Like, was it? Like how much?
I feel like Apple products are just made, and it's like buy a new one every year now. Whereas before it was like buy it because this is why it's better. And I get that the camera's being upgraded and the screen might be a little bigger or this and that. But
what else are they going to do, though?
Well, you tell me. I didn't.
You know what I'd like to see is turn the iPhone
things
into
before.
a hot plate so I could make macaroni and cheese right on the top of the iPhone. That would impress me.
You know, I was watching Seinfeld last night, and Kramer's talking about the Millennium Party that he's going to be throwing. And he's like, in the year 2000, we'll be able to talk to people like this just by thinking of it, Jerry. Oh, it's Newman calling. And I was like, no, we did not come that far. But I just feel like every time Steve Jobs got on stage, there was something miraculous coming, some innovation to the app or the software or the experience. And now it's just like, we're proud to present iPhone 21.
Well, they're banking on the fact that everybody wants the upgrade.
4, 5, 6 lens camera. I'm like, I don't care about the camera. Just make my life easier.
Yeah, sure.
I did like the software update lately with you can schedule your emails and you can edit your texts. I thought those were big updates.
Yeah. GP here says upgradable phones have been discussed, but significant cuts into profits, which seems to be something obvious. And Justin, by the way, that wasn't a shot at you. I'm just saying, it makes sense. Justin, I'm going to ask you, I love using the platform to talk to one person in particular. Please shoot us an email with some links. Like
I was going to talk
about
school
us up. Like I want Justin to school us up, because he says companies that actually put the money and effort into ensuring their supply chain is conflict-free have been performing much better than expected. I've studied the trends, says Justin, and it's a known quantity. We'd love to hear from you, and I say that absolutely sincerely. Here's one example. It's kind of like sounds like privileged example, but 15 years ago when I asked my wife to marry me, it was a non-starter for me. It was important that it was a Canadian diamond. That's like one example. I wanted it to be a conflict-free diamond. That's like maybe that's relatively speaking, but that's one example of one consumer, me, making one decision based on factors outside price. So people do make those decisions. I just don't know on an everyday or regular basis. I mean, it's like if you're buying eggs, or if you're going to buy, like Johnny, even the difference in pricing between organic bananas and the other bananas.
I buy organic bananas.
Well, sure you do, but how much more does it cost? 2-3 times sometimes?
Not as bad as buying I could see free range over whatever meat. Like meat,
sure.
I don't even see how people are eating meat right now. We went to, it doesn't matter what store you're going to, beef, good cuts are like $22, $25 a pound. What's going on?
Yeah.
It's ridiculous. But I was going to talk about phones because I know there's an upgradable phone. I can't remember it, but if the listener can school us on it, there's one where you can buy it and then you can, it's kind of like Lego, like you add pieces to it or whatever. There's also a company I know called Fairphone, which recycles phones, and they're a little more, like you said, a little more expensive than an iPhone, but you still get an iPhone, but it's been recycled. And
then I never want to also be duped by the greenwashing. Like, do they actually recycle the phones? Do they act? Companies are always letting us down. Like, what about Dieselgate with Volkswagen? And Volkswagen wasn't the only car manufacturer that was basically lying to everybody about their emissions testing. I don't know. I mean, it's just, man, we've opened up a huge can here.
Here's the thing. We have to start doing these things. Like, we need to start making things in better ways.
Well, the expectation is there. I mean, like, pack your bags. We're going on a guilt trip. It's like when our grandkids or kids grow up and they're going to look at us and say, you
sat there.
What was happening and you fucking sat there. What did you do about it? And if the answer is nothing, or if the answer is buy, or consume to excess, then I think that, that's the thing. It's like people will say, global warming, the planet is, and we talked to Dr. Hayhoe about this. You have to watch that interview. Amazing. Global warming or climate change is showing that it's inevitable that we're going to exceed that 1.5 degree increase, that target sort of that had been set to keep it under that 1.5 degree. And you look at all this stuff that's happening, and sometimes it's not the big trends, or it's not these harsh mega realities that'll impact us. It's the thought of looking our kid in the eye and trying to explain to them why we didn't do anything about what we knew was happening.
And we say, well, significant cuts to profits for large corporations were the main component maker of our decisions. And they're like, what does that even mean? Screw you.
Except for also, if your retirement is dependent on healthy performance from companies, then you actually do care.
That you work for or are connected to.
Like, this is a fact as well.
But that's the other thing. Everything's interconnected now. Like, everything's affecting everything else. So, like, we gotta figure it out. But I'm not the genius to do it.
Nor am I, but I suspect that some great perspectives lie in wait from the Real Talk audience.
But you can tell your kids, Ryan, that you started the conversation.
There you go. There you go. Hey, if you are looking to, maybe test drive an EV that will blow your mind, and I guarantee it, the Jeep Wrangler 4xe. This is the electric Jeep Wrangler. You've got the classic style, right? Like the Jeep brand since the 1940s has outpaced and outperformed every other 4x4 on the market. Now you can plug yours in. You can test drive a Jeep Wrangler 4xe today at Sherwood and St. Albert Dodge. You can find them under the sponsors tab on our website, or go directly to theirs. You can chat with a member of their sales team online, or go see them in person. Let them know that Real Talk sent you. That Jeep Wrangler 4xe. I drove it just a few months ago, John. Blew my mind in the best way. And before we head into this Wednesday afternoon and start getting ready for the rest of the week, which includes buckling up for Trash Talk on Friday, we'll remind you it's presented by our friends at Local Environmental Services. They've been with Real Talk since day one, and they've been with a lot of their customers, their partners in Alberta and Saskatchewan for 25 years, still family owned. Based out of Edmonton, Whitecourt, Regina, and other areas across the prairies, Local Environmental Services is covering garbage and recycling management, water hauling, landfill services, fencing, portable toilets, you name it, they'll do it at a competitive price in your prairie community. You can learn more about their team by checking out the Who is Local link at Local Environmental Services. Coming up on tomorrow's show, this is an explosive news story. It's just been released this morning by Danny Parody, the journalist at APTN, calling into question Alberta Premier Danielle Smith's claims of Indigenous ancestry. Plus, women and gender-fluid people in Vancouver are banding together to support what's happening in Iran. Nazanin Moghadami will join us from Women, Life, Freedom. That's on tomorrow's Real Talk. We'll see you then.
Real Talk is hosted by Ryan Jesperson, executive producer Josh Dunford, technical producer John Hicks, general manager Katie Cook-Chivers, account coordinator Lawrence Derlego, human resources Lena Shepard, website design Mike Johnston, voiceover by me, Carrie Skelton. Real Talk's editorial board is Supriya Dwivedi, Ahmed Ali, Brandy Morin, Ann Castleman, Corey Hogan, Harmon Candola, Catherine O'Neill, and Chris Henderson. Member Emerita, Julie Rohr. Real Talk is recorded in Edmonton, Alberta on Treaty 6 territory, the traditional and ancestral territory of the Cree, Dene, Blackfoot, Saulteaux, and Nakota Sioux, home to the Métis settlements and the Métis Nation of Alberta. Real Talk is a relay project. For more, check out ryanjesperson.com.